Hi everybody, welcome to episode 26 of the Pins and Needles podcast. My name is Zoe. You can find me on Instagram and on Ravelry as Pins and Needles UK. We have a podcast group of the same name in Ravelry, so come over and join us. You can send me a message on either of those, Ravelry or Instagram, or you can email me, hipinsandneedles@gmail.com. Big welcome back to all my regular watchers and extra special hello to all the new people. I've had quite a little jump in numbers this past week, so I don't know if somebody else gave me a shout out, but there seem to be lots of new bugs, so an extra warm welcome to you. I hope the lighting is okay. It's Friday evening, 9:15 at night. I have been trying to podcast since lunchtime and the gods have been against me, but fortunately it is beautiful weather in Wales at the moment, and so even this late at night we have gorgeous sunshine, so hopefully that's okay. What else did I need to say? Oh yes, check the drop down box below for timestamps if you want to dash over to a particular section, and for any of the patterns or yarns or anything that I mentioned in the podcast, all the details will be down there as well. It's been 2 weeks since we last spoke, and as usual it's been a pretty busy one. The most interesting thing I did was go to the handmade fair. If you remember, I mentioned it last time, and I took Jocelyn and we went up to my mum's, and mum lives in Stratford-on-Avon in the Midlands, and there's a stately home called Ragley Hall, which is about 20 minutes from my mum, and that's where the handmade fair was being held. That's organised by Kirsty Allsop, and if you're British you're probably quite familiar with her. She does sort of like those estate agent programmes, you know, and she has a sidekick and they sell people expensive houses on television, and then she did like a homemade Christmas television show. Anyway, so we were having a girls' day out at the handmade fair, and it was nice, but I was a bit underwhelmed, I have to say. The weather was a bit mixed. It was sort of cold and quite windy, and it was a lot smaller than I was expecting. So it was in the grounds of Ragley Hall, this big stately pile, and they had a ring of tents around the outside, so they had sort of food vendors and coffee shops and things. Then they had one big marquee that was I'm going to say theatre, but it wasn't a theatre. It was like where they did the big talks and demonstrations that you had to pay extra for. And then they had some smaller tents for workshops. Now, I hadn't paid extra for any workshops because I didn't really fancy reupholstering a cocktail stool. What? I mean, no. Reupholstery, fine. A cocktail stool, it struck me as odd. Anyway, there were lots of different talks and workshops that you could do. You could have made a willow dragonfly on a stick, but nothing desperately appealed. They were quite pricey, and I didn't think Jocelyn would want to sit through an hour's chat about various things. So we took a picnic lunch and we had a wander around. So yeah, all of those tents were around the outside. And then in the middle was the big marquee that was the shopping tent. And it was full of the most beautiful things, but it was pretty much all finished products. So you could buy the most beautiful things. They had leather handbags, they had beautiful candles that smelt amazing, they had artwork, they had hand-painted china, they had, what else did they have? Sort of little things made out of fabric, you know, all sorts of knick-knackery and craftiness, but it was all the finished product, with the exception of a big stand that had loads of scrapbooking supplies and one or two stands that just sold little kits. There wasn't anybody selling the raw materials for you to make your own thing, which struck me as odd because it's a handmade fair and all you could buy was a finished object. It was still lovely, it just wasn't what I was expecting. So we had a nice wander round, and then we had our picnic lunch, and then we had a second wander round just to make it feel as though we'd got our money's worth. And I bought some presents, and oh, Jocelyn found a nice stand that was selling felt, ready cut out felt shapes. There was stars and dragonflies and a heart, I think. And so she picked up some of those, and she's quite had a go at some embroidery. I had some old embroidery silks, and she's been decorating those, and I think at some point she'll sew them onto some jeans. So that's quite nice. If anybody has any links for tutorials and things, do let me know in the comments down below. A couple of people made some suggestions on Instagram, but yeah, child-friendly or simple embroidery tutorials. I'd love some recommendations. So that was the handmade fair. I can now run 5 kilometres without stopping. It's slow and it nearly kills me, but I can do it. So that was one of my 2017 goals, to be able to run 5 kilometres. And tomorrow morning I'm going to do the Barry Island Park Run. Now, Park Run is a voluntary organisation that sets up and runs a weekly 5 kilometre fun run. In locations all over the UK. They're held in parks and in countrysides and in towns all over the place. And there's one on the island. So I thought I'd have a go at doing that. I know that some people walk and run, so it definitely won't be the fastest, but hopefully I won't be last. And I just thought it might be fun, keep me going, a bit of motivation, that sort of thing. So yeah, I've done 2 5 kilometre runs by myself, but a different route to the park run, which I'll try in the morning, so we'll see how that goes. I've also been making rhubarb and vanilla jam. Dave has got some big raised beds in the back garden and has been growing rhubarb for me because he knows I like it. And Ellie gave me a lovely recipe for rhubarb and vanilla jam. I also wanted to remind everybody that we've only got a few days left of the hashtag 3amigas knit along. This is the joint knit along with Owl About Yarn and Tyddyn Bryn. The chat thread is in my group on Rav. The finished objects is on Jenny's in Owl About Yarn, and the prize announcements will be made in Tyddyn Bryn. So it's Wednesday of next week, so you've got four days left to get your things finished, so get a crack on and put them up in there for a chance of a prize. Pause for a quick drink. Normally I have tea or a glass of squash. Tonight, gin and tonic. It's been a bit of a week, and so I just thought I'd drink gin until I can't feel my knees. So if things get a little bit ropey as we go through, it's gin o'clock. Oh, I do like gin. Right, pins. I made my top. Now, this is... No, that's the wrong pattern. This is the Simplicity K8089 pattern that I waved at you last week. And I made it up in some viscose jersey from Miverva Crafts. And I've chucked it on Demelza just so that you can have a proper look. I made a straight size medium, and I just added an inch to the length. It's a bat wing top, like that. And this isn't a separate waistband, it's just one long piece, and you sort of ruche it up yourself. It was super simple to make, front, back and a neckband. Thank you to everybody who offered me suggestions on the neckband issue. Basically, what it should have said was, cut out the front and back on the fold, open out the fabric and cut the neckband on a single layer of fabric. But I didn't understand that. Anyway, so thank you very much for that. So I'm quite pleased with how this turned out, actually. The neckband seemed to be a little bit long. When it says sort of stretch neckband to fit the neck hole, I didn't have to do much stretching, and it does stand just a little bit proud. I don't know if it quite comes out in the camera, perhaps more on the other side up here. But I think a good blast with a steam iron will sort that. The only problem I had was with the sleeves. Now, it has 2 options for the sleeve. If you have a look at this one here. So I wanted to make B. So this is the sleeve you should have here. And if you wanted to make A, you just stitch on a cuff piece here. So I cut this piece at first, and it's supposed to come below your forearm. It's supposed to come to about here, so past the widest part of the forearm. I didn't add any length to the arms, and because I'm tall, instead of it finishing here, it hit here. And as well as being longer in the arms, with all my weightlifting, I also have quite substantial arm muscles. So unfortunately, at the given length, it was just too tight. It's a stretchy jersey fabric. I used a 3/8 seam allowance because I knew it might be an issue. But ultimately, they were too tight to be comfortable. And it wasn't, because it wasn't sitting in the right place, it pulled everything out all the way up to the neckline. So basically, I chopped 4 inches off it, and now I have a short sleeve top, which is fine. I don't mind. It means at least I can wear it over summer. But if I make this again, I will grade out to the size large sleeve, and yeah, add a bit of length. But in terms of the finished objects, I'm very happy with it, and it's totally served its purpose for giving me my sojo back, and I'm definitely back in the game. So yes, that is my batwing top. I showed you last week this pattern, Simplicity 1318, and it was the kimono pattern that I wanted to make, and hopefully one for me and one for Jocelyn. And I jumped on the internet and I ordered myself some fabric. And look, I went on to Shona's website, sewistfaction.co.uk, and ordered some lovely fabric. And look, oh, and that label on the bottom says Happy Post, and it's sewistfaction.co.uk. And this is what I ordered. It's 100% polyester, but it is a crinkle crepe. I've never sewn with crepe, but it's a lovely, I could chuck it over Demelza and then you'll be able to see. There we go. So you can see the lovely drape in the fabric, really nice sort of paint marks on it, and it will look great with jeans. You could wear any shade of blue or cream or anything like that. And it has, I don't know how they seal it into the fabric, but it has a permanent crinkle. I don't know if you can see. I don't think I'll be able to show you, the light's not quite good enough. So yes, that is next on my cutting table, crinkle crepe. It states in the kimono pattern that you need interfacing, presumably for the band that goes all around the front edge, and I've run out. So I was just wondering, can you get away? I know it needs to be interfaced to give it the structure and the support, but I was just wondering if I had enough fabric left over, having cut out the pattern pieces, can I use this fabric as the interfacing instead of having to buy interfacing? Does that make sense? I don't have to have separate stuff. I could just use this fabric itself, so it would be doubled in effect. I don't know if that would work. Let me know what you think. So that will be next up, and I'm hoping that it will be another, nice, quick and easy make. It really has been hot. It's been 23, 24 degrees here recently, and I am ginger and I burn. So something like this is a nice cover up just for the beach, nice and light and breezy. I think it will be super handy. So hopefully I will have that stitched up for the podcast next week, because I want to try and keep my feet going with the sewing. It's the thing I tend to drop the most. So right, let's lose that because it doesn't look quite as smart on camera as my super fancy top. Right. On to acquisitions. Now, if you can see behind me up here, I have acquired a vintage sewing machine. Dave's mum is moving house. She's downsizing, so clearing all sorts of things out of her house, and it turns out that she still had her grandmother's hand crank sewing machine. And it holds a lot of memories for her, and she remembers her mother making loads of clothes for her and her brothers and sisters on it, and she used it herself to run up outfits. But she doesn't use it anymore, but she couldn't quite bring herself to give it away or sell it. So she very kindly passed it on to me, and I'm absolutely thrilled with it. I have put a better picture of it up on my Instagram feed, so if you want to have a bit of a closer look, Pins and Needles UK on Instagram. It weighs an absolute ton. You could kill someone with one of these machines, I'm not even kidding. So it's a Jones sewing machine from the 1930s, which fits in with the time that Dave's great-grandparents were getting married. And my mother-in-law thinks it was like a wedding present, like setting up house present from her great-great-grandparents. So yeah, it's nearly 100 years old, and it's sewn a lot of stitches and comes with a lot of fond memories. So I'm very glad to be treasuring that. When I posted a picture up on Instagram, I did ask if anyone could point me in the direction of any resources or if anyone knew anything about this machine, and lots of you commented, so thank you very much for that. And a special thank you to Natalie, who is the Yarn Yard on Instagram, and she pointed me to a website called sewmuse.co.uk, and again I'll put the links in down below. And that's where I found out that it was a Jones machine, although it says Jones on it, and it's a cylindrical shuttle. If you open the throat plate, it looks like a bit like a bullet. I haven't had much of a chance to play with it yet. It needs a good clean, and I'm hoping that Jocelyn will learn to sew on it. She quite fancies having a go, but is a bit intimidated by my machine. Although my electrical machine is a very basic Janome model, the thought of the foot pedal running away with her has been putting her off, so she can just use the hand crank. I'm hoping that will be a nice easy introduction for her. Anyway, I wanted to talk a bit more about Natalie because she has written a book which I bought, and here it is. This is The Sewing Machine by Natalie Fergie, and look how stunning that front cover is. And if I read you a bit off the back, basically it's the story of one particular sewing machine and how it passes from hand to hand. And there's a series of notebooks, sewing notebooks, that go along with this machine. And the final owner learns all about his family and different people from his past through this sewing notebook that accompanies the machine. So you get a bit of social history. It's beautifully written, it's really well written, but it leaves you lots of space for your own imagination, which I absolutely love. I don't get a huge amount of time to read. It's mostly a couple of pages at night before I go to sleep. But I'm racing through this. Look, I'm very nearly at the end. Can you see my bookmark? So I'm thoroughly enjoying this. I know some of you have already read it. I know others have put it on your reading lists, and it's waiting on some bedside tables. So I would thoroughly recommend getting hold of this. It's a really enjoyable read, and if you're a crafter yourself, you can really appreciate some of the things that are in here. I had a quick check. You can buy it from Amazon as a Kindle download for £3.99. I think it's also available through Blackwell. I bought mine from an independent bookshop down in London that Natalie recommended to me. It's called the Big Green Bookshop, biggreenbookshop.com. And they're in Wood Green in London, and it cost me £9.99. So yes, absolutely worth every penny. I'm thoroughly enjoying reading it, and when I've finished reading it, I will be going and reviewing it on Goodreads and on Amazon, all over the place, because it really is fantastic. As well as being a brilliant story, there's an interesting way that it's been published, and in the front few pages there's a little note from the founders of a website called Unbound. And Unbound is a company that has a novel way of getting books published. And so there's a website, and authors share on this website the ideas for the books that they want to write. And then potential readers will go on and pledge their support. And if sufficient people pledge their support, the author writes the book. The supporters get a particularly fancy copy, and then obviously it gets published, and anybody can buy it. So if you have a look at unbound.com, I haven't had a chance yet, but it sounds absolutely fascinating. So yes, I can highly recommend The Sewing Machine by Natalie Fergie. You can find her website, nataliefergie.com, and she is on Instagram as The Yarn Yard. So let me know if you've read it, and if you have, please do give her a review, a positive review, because we need to support each other with this kind of thing. That is the end of my pin section. Onto needles, my knitting bit. Can you keep a secret? Just between us? Maybe. I have a finished object, and it's a super special finished object, and you guys will be the first to see it. And you've got to be kind, because this is my first ever design. I have designed a pair of socks, and I've been showing some teaser pictures on Instagram of the yarn I used, and I made a complete prat of myself on a photo shoot with my husband yesterday. So I thought I would show you my beach hut socks pattern, and here they are. What do you think? Do you like them? Maybe, maybe not. So as you all know, I live on Barry Island in South Wales, and I'm literally 2 minutes from the beach. And about 18 months, 2 years ago, the local council built two beautiful little runs of beach huts, and they are painted in bright primary colours, and you can hire them. They're always bursting with families and children and picnics. And I just thought that they'd make a rather lovely sock design. So here is my beach hut sock. So these bits are supposed to be the beach huts. So it's pretty much a vanilla sock. Just plain stripes. There's 5 rows of colourwork, nothing to be scared of, and a few more stripes. It's a heel flap and gusset because that's my favourite. And then I've added another set of stripes right at the bottom and a standard wedge toe. So yes, this has been my secret knitting. It's why there hasn't been very much knitting on anything else, because I really wanted to get these done. I have a fabulous tech editor called Maria, and she's helping me, you know, polish up the pattern so it's nicely professional looking. I've got test knitters all lined up, raring to go in the monthly thread. Thank you so much everyone that offered. And I'm really hoping to get these published by the first week of July. I'm going to Yarningham, the yarn festival with Jenny, and I'm hoping to sell some patterns and some kits there. I've knitted these on 2.25mm needles, and it's in Jenny's yarn. She very kindly dyed this main colour for me, a custom dye. It's called Overcast, and it's her standard sock yarn. It's a 75/25 merino nylon. And then this, the colourwork sections are just a couple of minis from her rainbow mini set, and they're slightly sparkly as well, which I absolutely love. So yeah, 2x2 rib, 6-inch leg, heel flap and gusset, and down to a wedge toe. I've written them for the standard 3 sizes, so 56, 64 and 72 stitches. And yes, they are my first ever design. What do you think? I'm a bit nervous about telling you about them actually. These are my babies. And what if you don't like them and nobody wants to knit them? We'll see. So yes, as I said, still with tech editing at the moment. test knit is ready to go, and hopefully they will be out in time for the summer. So I'll let you know when it's all out, and I'll get them up on Ravelry so you can download them if you'd like to. I do have quite a few more design ideas, so I'm hoping to get a few more out in autumn of this year. So yes, that's my finished object, my beach hut socks. There we go. In terms of my works in progress, I'm afraid they're not going to be terribly exciting to look at. If you remember last episode, I told you that I was going to cast on my, what's the name of it? My Kerrmaier t-shirt. Yeah, and that's a pattern by Kerrmaier. Now, I have actually made a start, but you're going to laugh. So I'm knitting it in Lithuanian linen, which I bought from Estelle of Midwinter Yarns, and it's the colourway Avocado. I was between sizes on the pattern, and this yarn is basically, it's heavy lace weight rather than fingering. So I had a real bear trying to get my tension to match the pattern, and then the sizes, none of them were going to be quite right. They were either going to be a bit too snug or 4 inches bigger than I wanted. So then I realised that actually I only had one size needle that I could use anyway. I seem to have lost my 3mm fixed circular needle, so all I could find was my 3.5s. So this is the shoulder. Well, actually I have two shoulders. I literally only cast this on last night, I'm afraid. It's an all-in-one top-down pattern, but you start knitting the shoulders separately, then you join them all together and carry on. So I'm afraid this is as far as I've got. But I very much like knitting with the linen. The light's going now, I'm afraid. It's getting a bit dodgy. But it's quite an open texture, so I'll probably have to wear a cami underneath. But yeah, I'm enjoying working with it, and I think it's something I will wear a lot. So that's as far as I've got, I'm afraid. We'll have to see how much further I get tonight, but the plan is to knit that up in time for the Yarningham Festival. Then I'll have something cool and floaty and flappy in case it's roasting again. The other thing I'm knitting, I'm sorry I'm disappearing, the coffee table that I put my stuff on is over there covered in stuff. As I said, it's been a funny old day. So this is the Vitamin D cardigan by Heidi Kerrmaier. And the last time I showed you, I had made a mess of the short rows. This is another all-in-one top-down pattern. There we are, it's getting a bit easier to show you now, it's bigger. And there we are, that's how far I've got. So I've managed to complete, it's difficult to explain without giving too much away, but once you've joined the sleeves and you've started working on the body has 3 short row sections. And can you see here, you can see the marks made by the wraps and turns. So there's section 1, there's section 2, and I'm just starting section 3. And can you see you start again with the yarn overs to get the decorative holes like you have up here. So I managed to work out what I'd done wrong, and I just got my short rows confused, but it meant tinking back about 5 or 6 very long rows. There's hundreds of stitches on there. And I had to join 2, I'm using my Knit Pro Symphonies, my interchangeable set. And in order to get a cord long enough for so many stitches, I had to use the connectors. So you have a little metal connector thing that you twizzle one cable into one end and the other cable into the other. So it gets very unwieldy and it's stiff where this metal bit is, and it's like wrestling an octopus. So it took me days to unpick it, but I'm back on track now. That is my 3 Amigas knit along project. I don't know if I'm going to get it done. I've got not a huge number of rows. I've probably got another 16 rows to go, but they're super long rows. And then you have to pick up and knit a button band all around the fronts and the neck, and that's going to be quite a lot of stitches as well. And then I have to wash and block it. So I'm not sure what my chances are, but I will have a go. Bear with me, we'll see if I make it. So yes, that's all my knitting, I'm afraid. Nothing terribly exciting, just the same as last episode, I'm afraid. But as I said, those beach hut socks have been taking up quite a lot of my time. So hopefully me producing my first design will make up for some of the not terribly exciting works in progress. Lastly of all, I wanted to mention my Two's Company section, where I just highlight any interesting things I come across. I've got one audio podcast recommendation. I don't think I've mentioned her before. It's Mrs M's Curiosity Cabinet. She's on Instagram. I'll leave links down below. And she's only released 3 episodes so far, but she is fascinating to listen to. She is trying to live a mindful, sustainable, environmentally friendly life, and her podcast covers all aspects of that. So there's definitely sewing and there's definitely knitting, but in the most recent episode that I listened to, she also talked about some cooking and how she's trying to preserve foods and some interesting not recipes, but she just talks to you about how she goes about things and why and what she's trying to achieve and things like that. And she's doing a particularly interesting sock experiment at the moment. She tries to limit how much plastic she has in her house. So she's trying to decide if we actually need nylon in our sock yarn. So she's knitting sets of socks in different yarns, some of which are 100% wool. So she's knitting like a control pair with some nylon in. And then she's trying out different breeds, different blends and different spinning preparations and reporting back on her findings. So that was very interesting as well. So yes, Mrs M's Curiosity Cabinet. I listen through Podcast Republic, but I'm sure you can find her through iTunes and things like that. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I must confess I haven't tried this myself, but on my Instagram feed there popped up a company called Print Your Pattern. And I clicked through and they have a website, printyourpattern.com, and it's a UK-based company who will print your PDF download patterns for you for a flat rate of £6.50 and send it to you for free. Now, some people absolutely hate cutting these things out and printing them and sticking them together and faffing about. So I think £6.50 isn't a bad price actually. They only currently print the A0 copy shop size files. If any of you have used PDF downloads, you get an A4 size print at home document, and you usually also get an A0 size that you would take to a professional printer's. So this company prints the A0 size and they fold it up to A4 size and send you that in an envelope. It's 3 to 5 working days, flat rate of £6.50. So as I said, I've not used it myself, but I thought it might be worth mentioning to you guys in case you might be interested. Well, that is everything I have for you this week. I'm sorry that the lighting has disappeared a bit, but like I said, it is a little bit late today. It's been a bit of a bear. So thank you ever so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please give me a thumbs up and click the subscribe button. Don't forget about your hashtag 3amigas knit along, and check the down bar below for various links. If anybody has any embroidery suggestions, I'd be very grateful for those, and I will be back in another 2 weeks.